Hi, this is Dr. Bob with Carolina Value Pet Care, and thank you for joining us today. Again, we're going to be talking about fleas and ticks in dogs today. So I'm going to get my lovely assistants, Laura and Becky, are going to be asking the questions, and so hang in there with us and we'll try to give you the best information we can.
Dr. Bob, what diseases are associated with fleas and ticks?
Yeah, with fleas and ticks, there are different diseases. With fleas, our primary concerns are anemia, where puppies can actually get particularly in puppies, they can get so many fleas on them that they can actually die from blood loss, because that's what the fleas are doing. They're sucking so much blood from them. We can see what we call tapeworms, not a true disease, but can create a debilitating condition through the tapeworms. And these tapeworms can get to be about 2 feet long inside the intestinal tract. But again, they get those primarily from ingesting fleas. As far as ticks, we're concerned about Lyme disease, Ehrlichia, anaplasmosis, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Now, we do see Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and we do see Lyme disease in people as well. And yes, your dog can get those two diseases just as people can. Okay.
Where would my dog get fleas and ticks?
Yeah, they're going to get them initially from outside. Now, of course, with fleas, they're pretty happy living inside somebody's house, especially year-round. But initially, they're going to be picking them up outdoors. Now, certainly ticks, there's, as one parasitologist in veterinary medicine once said, he said, if you knew how many ticks were out there, you probably would never go outside. They're just that much of an issue in certain parts of the country. But we do see ticks year-round in this area. We typically see they start to emerge, or at least noticeably in February, and then generally peak in July and August, and then start to settle down a little bit after that. Fleas, actually, on the other hand, their peak season in this area is autumn, but we will typically see them start to emerge March, April, and then all the way through December. But September, October, November, and December are the peak 4 months for fleas in this area.
Is a short-haired dog more susceptible to getting fleas and ticks?
That's a really great question. Not really. They're just easier for us to identify if they get on a short-haired dog, but they're not necessarily going to be, especially when it comes to ticks. Fleas, on the other hand, yeah, we actually, in just my many years of experience doing this, I tend to see that the shorter hair dogs, not necessarily short-haired dogs, but shorter hair dogs, are going to be more likely to be infested than say a really long, thick-coated dog, say like a chow or a husky or something of that nature. So yeah, hair coat can make a difference, but I wouldn't buy a dog based on that information. Okay.
Can my dog still get fleas and ticks in the winter?
Absolutely, yes. And as we mentioned, ticks are a year-round problem in this part of the country. So here we are in North Carolina, and yes, we do see ticks potentially year-round. And there's actually 7 different species of ticks that exist in North Carolina. And actually, I think there's an introduction of a new one that we're more concerned about more recently. Fleas, typically once we have a killing frost outside, meaning if it gets down 25, 26 degrees for 2 nights back to back, that will be the end of our our flea season outside. But still, fleas can thrive inside the house in the wintertime. And let's face it, I mean, you've got the thermostat set at 65, 68 degrees, and fleas are pretty happy. They've got a meal with the dogs or with the cats inside the household. They're not going to be as active because the humidity is lower. And there's actually one consideration. There's 3 different conditions for fleas that help them really thrive, and which is why we see more problems in the autumn. So the 3 conditions: they need a certain amount of rain. So if we have an extraordinarily dry or drought type of a year, we're not going to see as many fleas typically. But they actually prefer, for reproduction purposes, temperatures more in the 80-degree range. If we have consistently high temperatures in the 90s, sort of a scratching around 100 degrees, we're not usually going to see as many fleas. And the other the other criteria is going to be moisture. Actually, I'm sorry, I already mentioned the drought. Humidity. Humidity is a given here all summer and into the autumn, so that condition is never going to change. Drought conditions, overly wet conditions, that can change from year to year. But in general, that's why we see more problems in the autumn, because the temperatures are starting to let up a little bit. It's going to be more consistency in the 80-degree range. Generally, we might get a hurricane that might drop some rain here, but the more rain, the more the cooler the temperatures, relatively speaking. That's why we see more fleas in the autumn than any other time of year.
What factors can increase my dog's risk of getting fleas and ticks?
The more time they spend outside, quite frankly, the greater the risk. Now, really important to recognize, a lot of people go through their entire lives with their dogs and say, gosh, I never see any fleas, and they've used some I hate to say it, crappy flea product, and they're just convinced that this product's working. But understand, fleas are not everywhere. They migrate. They move from neighborhood to neighborhood. They'll expand their territory one year, maybe to the next year because of weather conditions. They'll contract their territory, but they do continually migrate. So keep that in mind. So you might go years without seeing any fleas, and all of a sudden, boy, you have an infestation. Don't blame your neighbor. That's just the nature of of the way their lifestyle, so to speak, and the way their sort of biology. So of course, the more time they spend outside, the greater risk of getting exposed, the greater risk that they're going to get fleas, get ticks. Now, ticks, a couple of considerations. Obviously, more wooded areas. If you have like hunting dogs or dogs that have or some pasture, or you've got some woods behind your house and your dog's able to go back there, yeah, that's going to be a prime ground for ticks. So obviously that's going to increase the likelihood. So not a bad idea to do a tick check on them. Check between the toes, check the ears, check pretty much everywhere. And of course, with hair, it's not always going to be easy to see the ticks, but certainly worth doing the check for. Certainly, it's actually easier to see ticks than fleas, generally because A, they're a little bit bigger, and second, because once they latch on, they don't move. So they're sucking. So fleas will move around. Ticks, once they're attached, they're going to be stuck there for some days, okay, while they're continuing to feed. So anyway, so hopefully that answers some questions or brings up some things that you hadn't thought about with fleas and ticks. Go to our website, Carolina Value Pet Care, for more information, and we hope to see you at one of our clinics, and check our schedule on our website, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks.